Hi guys, it's Ryan and today's video is a purchase guide for Tunguska. It's been an interesting few weeks for the faction with the update dropping as I wrote this video, meaning I had to reconsider some box options. Like my other purchase guide videos, this is for those who are beginning Tunguska as either a first, second or third army with the goal to get to 300 points. I don't touch on 150, 200 or reinforcements. Best to sort those details locally. In this video, I'll look at most boxes available for Tunguska and sort them into three categories. Initial ones to get, nice to have, and the ones you can skip. Now, with all of my purchase guide videos, I make the caveat that this is not a vote list that you must follow, but merely recommendations. And if you see a model you really want to play or paint, just ignore me and grab it. It's your hobby time, not mine. Additionally, this could be outdated at any point as CB have been known to consolidate or remove boxes with some notice. But before we begin, remember to like and subscribe for more. This was a lot of work to put together. Before I begin, I just wanted to quickly mention this list is inspired by a Tunguska purchase guide by Inane Imp on the Infinity Discord, the unofficial one. That list really inspired other purchase guides and why I do them on this channel, so I'm going to shout that out and say that I used that as a basis for this video, but I kind of went away and done my own thoughts on it. So thank you to Inane Imp if you're watching, you have inspired a lot of my channel. The following boxes and blisters are the ones to get for your initial Tunguska list and represent the core of Tunguska and the ones you'll probably need sooner rather than later. This is all the basic stuff that you want to get going with minimal proxying, but there still might be some because I love proxying. You can see my Tunguska diaries for that. The Tunguska Jurisdictional Command Nomad Sectorial Starter Pack, or just the Tunguska Starter Pack, is going to be the go-to recommendation for those starting the army. Why? Well, plainly it's got a bit of everything you need despite only having 6 models. It has 3 Securitates with combi rifles, so that's your lieutenant, decoy / filler, comlink, paramedic, repeater profile, and maybe hacker if you want to push it. That is also the majority of your uses without proxying at all. I'll talk more about the other profiles soon, but they are really solid line troopers, and to have 3 of them is always fantastic, as most, if not all lists, will have at least 2 of them. If you don't want the SSW box, which is valid, these poses do allow some snipping, sculpting and 3D printing to get what you want. A Heckler is another model you get in the pack, and another one that is just a mainstay of Tunguska lists thanks to its killer hacking device and its potent fast panda / jammer profile, both of which can be represented by the combi rifle here, which is another reason this is a good buy. You have half a core fire team here and 1 good midfielder already. You can proxy the Heckler here as a Spectre or an Interventor if you do that for your list, since all elite Nomad, light infantry or medium infantry and skirmishers can look similar in design. Hollowmen are your line heavy infantry and are often featured in non-tag lists and unfortunately don't link with Securitates, which is a negative but offset by linking with Krizas and Stemplers. With this box and 1 Zon box you can get a really good harness of a Kriza HMG, picture multi-rifle Hollowman and Stemplers on for a solid harness. That will fulfill your list needs for a main shooter and get fantastic value from just 2 boxes. The Kriza Borak HMG is the last bit in the box, and same as above, you use it in non-tag lists, and it's good as you can learn the game with this as your main shooter. Really, this box is a very good investment for new players. It brings the core to your core fire team and 2/3 of a seriously nice harness and a nice midfielder. With minor loadout proxying, this box will take you so very far, so very quick in regards to getting you into Tunguska. The Zoned Remote Pack is a really good buy for Tunguska, as you may well end up running 3 different Zon base profiles. We're Nomads, so we need a vertical Zond or the missile bot, so that's basically 1 already. And if you're doing a tag list, that's probably a transductor or 2. If you're not doing a tag list and doing a Hollowman list, then it's probably worth having a Stemplers on, so again that's at least 2 overall in most lists, but it can very quickly spiral to 3 or 4, and that's another box. However, as a recommendation for getting into the army, start with 1 and use that limitation to start with the army and build up. If you need the flexibility, you can always magnetize, but if you want a build recommendation, get 1 missile launcher and combi rifle to start with, then just proxy between profiles as needed. Really consider this a primary purchase for Tunguska, although if you play another faction with Silhouette 3 bots, just use them. They're basically all the same. My drone bots are my zones until I need more than 2. New players, consider getting these or proxying from other armies as they are vital to Tunguska. The Code 1 Nomad Booster Pack Alpha is not marketed as a Tunguska box, but it is very much for Tunguska as it gives you 3 Tunguskan units, 2 which are iconic profiles and characters, and the third is a bit of an okay piece but still really solid. So it contains Merry Problems, Tunguska's hacker character, and shows up as a good specialist and midfielder. She's always worth having in the midfield as she is a very multifaceted unit, if a little expensive, with min-6 Sans marker state and 2 hacking devices. She can do a good few jobs fairly well. Good model to have starting Tunguska, to use or to proxy her as an Interventor or Rounder, which slots into those 3 Securitates that I mentioned earlier to make part of a really good impure core. Another part of that core is also in this box, the fantastic Grenzer multi-sniper, who is a great Tunguskan unit and crops up regularly in Tunguska lists as a panel level shooter and ARO piece. It is hard to describe how remarkably solid it is other than saying it's a BS-14 with marksmanship and NSV-1. Very few guns are better than it in its intended role. These 2 models really make the box worth it for getting into Tunguska. The one little issue I have with this box is the Kriza here, and while it's great if you don't grab the Tunguska starter pack, however I really think you should grab that, and if you do get this redundant Kriza, which I find personally a problem since I don't see the duo Kurzers getting used, but it could be fun for some. Additionally, this is the Mark 12 one, which is fine, but I prefer the HMG. You can load out proxy, which is what I would do, but it still knocks down the box in my eyes. However, it is still a good box, and I do recommend it to get the last piece for your impure core, good second midfielder, and if you're crafty, a very nice proxy. If you'll indulge my need for proxying and kit bashing, we have very few Silhouette 5 or 6 models in Tunguska. We have the Kriza, Extreme Zealandkrieger, and the Zondmate from the Znautica. So the Kriza has a few little extra gubbins on his back that could be snipped off or replaced with some wheels, and an axe or chain rifle to look like the profiles we're proxying as, which could be a fun hobby project if you're into it. Big if though. If you don't mind the double Kriza or turning it into a proxy, or you don't have a Kriza to begin with, this is a really good box to get you to 300 points. The Motorized Bounty Hunter is a great unit and has been a mainstay of Tunguska since they were introduced, and I do think they're worth grabbing, even now as a cheap order in the post-Zealandkrieger age, as it gives another fast pseudo warband and assault piece. It's probably in more of my list than it should be competitively, but I really enjoy the idea of it. From experience, bikes can be fun to paint as you can practice your skills of painting humans and vehicles at the same time. Definitely recommend it. Despite this being my 4th purchase guide, this is my first time covering an SWC box. Check the cards for what that means. And it's in my initial buys because having 6 full line infantry is a very good place to build from as a sectorial, as you can use them to run a pure core and save points to learn the basics, or start an impure core to get a little more oomph. So what's in the box? You get a HMG Securitate, hacker, boarding shotgun repeater profile, and a Grenzer combi rifle light flamethrower combination. A solid set of profiles that will make their way into your list even as proxies. The hacker is a mainstay as you learn the game, as a reliable but squishy option and a cheaper alternative to the Rounder or Interventor. The boarding shotgun repeater is less common but could easily be proxied as a combi rifle if you lack them for some reason, or you need a 4th alongside the starter pack. The HMG, however, can be the HMG, which isn't taken often, or can be proxied as an ARO piece, either the multi-sniper or Fuhrback. So with 3 Securitates, you get 3 very solid pieces. I don't think you'll use the 6 in your same list, but hey, it's a bench warmer or proxy fodder, you never know. The Grenzer combi rifle is an odd one, though it can either be the Sensor NCO Forward Observer version, which I think has legs as a wildcard NCO user, although now with Rounders that's a bit harder to sell. Or you can proxy it as a Grenzer multi-sniper. I mentioned this earlier why this is such a good idea, and really with this box and the TGC starter, you get a solid core, most of a good Harris, and a solid midfield. I think this is a pretty good box and allows you to keep the extraneous purchases to a minimum and give you what you need for a good list. Just before we move on, I want to show you what you can get with the Tunguska Action Pack, a REM box, and a Securitate box. 232 points in 10 orders. That's pretty good for a core, a Harris, and if you grab the Motorized Bounty Hunter, that's a Group 2 warband piece which is desperately needed. Then grab a few pieces from our next section and you have a very nice 300 point list for Tunguska with an effective BS-17 sniper with some veteran orders, a Burst 6 HMG in a Harris, and a really solid set of repeaters for your hacker to use, guided missile bot, and a great anti-bear tool. If I were to recommend what to fill this list out with without making purchase recommendations, I would probably suggest a second hacker, a second Heckler, and at least one warband to go with the Motorized Bounty Hunter. That is about 70 points and 1 SWC with some changes to your groups. You would have a fantastic list to learn the faction. The following section is the nice to have, but also the good to have to finish off a list. Lots of solid pieces in here and in no particular order, so pick the ones that interest you and go from there. Interventors have changed their place in Tunguska wildly in the last 24 hours as of writing on the 1st of February. They were always good in Tunguska and worth picking up as hackers for Securitate in pure cores and the occasional Whip 15 Lieutenant. They also come with Fast Panda tokens, so that's helpful and can proxy other models as the Heckler or let the Heckler starter have his own Fast Panda. I don't think you'll need both Interventors unless you're running Lieutenant and Decoy, which is a lot of points and hacking prowess, but these days I don't think this is needed thanks to the addition of the Kulak chain of command. I do recommend this box, but I think you don't really need both models unless you want the second to run as a decoy or you really want to dominate the hacking space. So this is a small repack for reinforcements, and it's not a Tunguska box, but like the Code 1 pack, it's very much a Tunguska box. It features Gelena, our Dire Foes character, Raoul Spectre, a named parachutist and melee powerhouse, and a Spectre skirmisher. These three are three solid B choices, which is not necessarily a bad thing. They do offer a lot, with Spectre the character being the most useful, but there is something to be said about a hidden deployment specialist as well, since the Spectre can get used in a fair few missions. Finally, Gelena can bring tactical awareness to any fire team in the faction, as well as sensor and solid rifle ranged weapons. You don't need any of these in a strict competitive environment, but these could be a list 2 unit or in your routine list if hidden deployment skirmishers or some really good melee is your jam. Consider this box. I'll probably grab it because I like all three options and I think you should at least consider it. The Zealandkrieger pack or Aftermath character box represents a big boost to Tunguska with the addition of proper low-cost smoke-wielding warbands, and this box gives the chance to get 4 good warbands and a random character who isn't in the faction. I do recommend the box, obviously, but with some caveats, or this would be up in the initial buy section. In this box you get 5 models. Uhahu, who isn't in Tunguska, so this will need to be a proxy, or I guess play Bakunin to use her instead. If you do proxy, I recommend her as Mary Problems, as it's the same sort of vein of short hacker girl. You get Dima Connolly, the Scotsman with an Irish name and logo and a face like a slapped arse. He is in most of my lists for a very good reason, so he gets the recommendation. You get 2 Zealandkrieger, who I don't think you need to, and Dima, but it's nice to have 2 unique sculpts for them, and the Extreme Zealandkrieger, or the Big Lad. You probably only need 2 of the warbands at any one time, maybe 3 at most, and that makes this box fairly worth it. The proxy for Mary is also pretty nice. You're never going to use all of them at once, but it's worth buying for at least a few models to get used from this box. Znauticas are a really unique unit, and I think it's worth picking it up as it's very good, fast and unique specialist that can do a lot to make up for the lack of midfield specialists, as the Heckler can kind of suck the air out of a room. It comes with the Spitfire model, but no one will notice if you take the hacker or the boring shotgun version. Non-WYSIWYG is always preferred in my books. You get 3 models, 1 combined, 2 dismounted with the Rider and the Zonmate. Really, this is a fantastic unit, worth grabbing eventually. The Salamandra is one of many reasons to get into Tunguska. As such, it's in the nice to haves for the reason that you get basically a Harris and a core in the initial purchases, so recommending a Salamandra there isn't quite what I want to do for the sake of efficiency, but it's very much not a bad purchase. The Salamandra is in lots of lists for very good reasons. It's a solid main battle tag, and having this will make a move to vanilla much easier. Pick this up as soon as you're willing to paint it. Fiddler is another great Tunguskan unit, but doesn't show up in every list, but having an engineer in Tunguska is a real must. The support box is probably better, and we'll get to that in a second, but Fiddler is really good regardless, as she links with the bots and can engineer them, or you can run her solo with her 2 bots as a deadly assault piece. For a really fun structure-based Harris, she is a go-to piece, and she's not exactly pricey to buy. She comes herself and 2 bots, which could be used as another Silhouette 1 bot if you're into that. I am, for what it's worth. She is vital to REM-based Harris, such as the Name Inc Harris, which can be tough to put down. She can also do the missions handily with her kit. She is really just a nice all-round piece that I think is worth picking up. The Hollowman box is a buy that I'm not going to throw at new players immediately, but it's definitely one to consider if you like Hollowman and you want to run a Harris or core of them. While the core isn't meta, it's certainly something everyone considers with Tunguska, as 5 bunny hopping gamers is hilarious. Anyway, this will give you every current version of the Hollowman loadout except the multi-rifle picture, but that is in the Tunguska starter box, so you'll probably already have it. You get a Spitfire, a combi rifle which will represent the plain combi, tin bot and hacker profiles, a missile launcher, and a boarding shotgun Hollowman. If you're taking a Hollowman list, you usually take between 1 and 3, usually either the Spitfire missile launcher or hacker loadout in some form of Harris. This box is great as it gives you every option you need, and it's nice to have all these models, but they're not really proxyable within the faction, and it is 4 models that at most you will use 3 of in a list unless you want to go out of your way to do more. It's a good buy, just don't rush out for it unless you like Hollowmen. The Minoron is a really nice piece for Tunguska and can give you a new vector to hack from by dropping a robot right where the enemy doesn't want it. It's also a really unique and stunning model for a fairly unique and potentially stunning concept. It's another Silhouette 3 box, so it's great to get and use as is or sneak in as a Stemplar proxy. I recommend this as it can slide into a lot of lists with solid hackers. It's a nice addition and it looks like it's great to paint. So a second Heckler, or the lone Heckler blister with Fast Panda, is a nice to have because you can get by with one, but a lot of competitive wisdom, if you care for it, is 2 Hecklers with jammers and Fast Pandas. I do like at least one in my list, but I also like midfield specialists. I'm always personally tempted by 1 killer hacking device, 1 jammer, but jammer Fast Panda is very good, and with this blister and the starter pack, you'll have 2 to play with, so you can kind of just pick the set of loadouts you want and go from there. Pick this up when you can and feel like you need more midfield control. The support box is pretty good for Tunguska as the sheer amount of structure-based units makes the Clockmaker a very solid piece. The Dactari is nice, I guess, but it's the Clockmaker and the 2 bots you're getting this box for. I think most, if not all, lists I'm making these days have a Clockmaker to help the tag, Hollowmen, warbands, robots, or numerous hackers. It's going to be needed eventually. So to make sure the Clockmaker isn't overworked, you'll need the 2 Zon bots to be in multiple places at once. Pop 1 near tag, Harris or hacker you're worried about, and your list resiliency and ability to reconstitute goes up massively. I really recommend getting these eventually. Every player should have a Warcore just in case they need it. Probably pick this up if you don't have it already. Sometimes you have an extra slot and an extra 3 points and you just slot in a Warcore. Consider picking them up. I mentioned earlier a second Zon pack is recommended to get eventually, so it's going in the nice to have section. Eventually you'll want 2 Transductors and a Vertigo, or a Vertigo and 2 Stemplars, or the full complement of bots for some reason, and when you start reaching for that 3rd bot, it's time to get this box. So when I started this script in late January, I was writing this with the intent to just cover Tunguska. Well, the reinforcement army changes have happened, and now, hey look, we get a bunch more units in Tunguska. This box is obviously great for reinforcements, but it's not bad for Tunguska. Not great, but good. Why? Well, 3 of the units have profiles in Tunguska and have shaken up list building, but the other 3 do not have a presence in the faction, so you'll need to either play Bakunin or Proxy. Let's have a look at the box. The Rounder, while rocking a Red Fury, isn't the go-to profile, it's more that hacker everyone is raving about. So this is a good model to get since it's a very effective unit. The 2 Kulaks aren't reached for as often, but equally also change up a lot for the army, granting chain of command and a good enough ARO piece to cheapen an expensive impure core. I don't think you'll need 2 in one list, but I could see it happening. That heavy rocket launcher will be very popular, but the Hacker less so. So just pretend it's the chain of command one. The last three models, as mentioned, are Bakunin units, so you'll need to proxy or shelve them, but I think they can fit right in with Tunguska as a proxy. So the Prowler first, since that's probably the hardest / least exciting. Two options for proxying, maybe three. You could proxy the Prowler as a Grenzer, a on-foot Zon-Not Rider, or maybe anything with Red Fury or Spitfire, such as a Heckler. Prowlers, like most Nomad medium infantry and some skirmishers and light infantry, do not look entirely dissimilar from each other, so a Prowler could be a Heckler Red Fury with very little effort and a simple black and red paint job. So a few options here. The two Mars Spiders could easily be your Zealandkrieger and save you a purchase of another box, as anything more than two Zealandkriegers in Dima is a bit too many Zealandkriegers. So consider this box if you really want the Kulaks and the Rounders for your lists. Are okay to proxy as much as you can if you're going to be playing reinforcements or have a Bakunin army. If none of these things really hit home for you, then maybe split this with a friend, use the split box service, or skip it. For a while, getting the Puppet Technica company was largely just get a model and proxy the Puppet Master for the counter intel, but now the bots might get taken a bit more regularly. You get 4 models in this box. One Silhouette 2, the Puppet Master, who rocks an SMG and will adequately represent all the profiles from it. And 3 Short Kings representing the 3 Puppet bots, and that's full availability of them as well. Most lists I see take 2 Puppet bots, but this way you can make sure you can have any combo you want, or maybe even a spare bot to use elsewhere as a PAL bot or a Fiddler bot. This section, titled Feel Free to Skip, is filled not with bad units, but units I'm not reaching for immediately, but people often find fun to have in lists. I don't think anything is needed here for initial purchases unless you really want to paint them. I keep saying I like cheer killers and then ragging on them, but this may be the time that I don't. This isn't a bad box if you want cheer killers, as they are nice models and cover most loadouts with the MSV2 marksman rifle, a twin multi-pistol model for that one profile, and then a universal proxy with the Shock CCW that will represent the rest of the profiles. 3 models is a good amount as a Harris, as that's about what I'd run them as, and these 3 models map nicely onto what exactly I'd want from that Harris. In this box you also get the Missile Launcher Grenzer, which at this point you're probably up to your Gills and Grenzers, so if you don't really have a need for another one, then maybe you can use this as a Kulak proxy, which would get used fairly often as a solid profile. Overall, a neat little box you could very much consider if you like the models. Wolf is a great unit I've gushed about 3 times now, so I'll save you the paragraph. He is worth considering in Tunguska, and also if you play Bakunin, Corregidor, Cosmoflot, Ariadna or the French, then grab him to help add some melee bulk to your armies. He's only here because I don't think he's vital for the army. The new Sputnik box is a repack of the Cyclone and Lunkhold into one box to save shelf space, similar to the new ARM box but no resculpts. The Cyclone is something you might take now and then, however the Lunkhold I don't think you will play. It still needs a change or two for me personally to consider it, but tell you what we don't have easy access to, a Vostok model, and the Lunkhold could do as a proxy. So there is a reason to pick this up alongside the Crazy Koalas for mines in the midfield. Not a bad box to be honest, just not for Tunguska. So this is a list using only 6 boxes listed to the side with only a few spare models. It's generally not considered the optimal list, no Rounder or Kulak, but it does have what was the last iteration of Tunguska, which is remarkably similar. We have a Core, Harris, 2 Skirmishers with only 3 boxes, the Securitate box, Tunguska Starter, and Heckler Blister. Then we fill it out with a couple of other boxes to basically bring all the staples of a Tunguska list, such as the Motorized Bounty Hunter and Zealandkrieger to act as missiles. We could use some midfield specialists, sure, but we have the Hecklers to kill stuff and then move up the Harris and do the job. I talk about this style of list in my list video, see here, but this is a list that I would feel fairly comfortable playing and recommending to a new player. It's got the basics, you can swap out the Core, the Harris, and throw in whatever and you have the fundamentals of Tunguska right here. So that was my video on a purchase guide for Tunguska. I hope you liked this video as it does take some time to research and think through. And if you did like this, remember to like and subscribe for more. It would really help me out. And as always, thank you so much for watching.